You know that feeling when you stumble upon a group of people just completely passionate about something you've barely even heard of?
Oh, absolutely. There's a real magic to it.
Finding those hidden pockets of enthusiasm, these communities bound together by a shared love, even for something that's, well, maybe faded from the mainstream spotlight.
Exactly. And today, we're going to do just that, unearth the story of one of those dedicated subcultures.
We'll be using a series of first-hand accounts as our guide.
These stories are always so compelling because they tap into something really fundamental, don't they? The desire for connection through shared interests.
Right. It's not just about the thing itself, in this case, a computer.
No, it's about the ingenuity, the creativity, the bonds that form within these really unique groups.
Absolutely. And our window into this specific world comes from the CoCoFest Chronicles. These are personal writings by Alan Huffman.
Okay, so not like a formal history book.
Not at all. They're informal reports, actually first shared on bulletin board systems,
Mm.
those early online communities.
Oh yeah, BBSs. The original social media almost.
Pretty much. And they offer this lively, often funny glimpse into the CoCoFests. These were gatherings of enthusiasts for the Tandy color computer,
The Coco.
as it was fondly called. So we've got this collection of real-time impressions covering events mainly from, 91 to 97?
That's the core period, yeah.
Yeah.
With some mentions of 1990, the year before, and a bit about 1998 too.
So it gives us a really immediate personal perspective on this subculture as it was evolving.
Definitely. And for you, the learner, our mission, as always, is to dive into these chronicles.
We want to extract the key insights, those memorable moments that really paint a clear picture of this community and the tech at its heart.
Yeah, give you the essence of the story without getting bogged down in every single little detail.
Exactly, a shortcut to understanding this unique scene.
And it's important to remember the context, too. By the early 90s, when these chronicles kick off, the Tandy-color computer wasn't exactly cutting-edge tech anymore.
No, Radio Shack had largely moved on by then.
Right, so these CoCoFests, they really represent this dedicated group. Maybe smaller in number than in the Coco's heyday, but deeply connected.
Connected by that shared history with the machine and maybe a bit of a we've seen it all, done it all attitude towards the changing computer world.
I think that's fair. That's sort of seasoned perspective.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's go back to the beginning. The first CoCoFest that Huffman really details is Atlanta in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual spark for these gatherings happened a year earlier, in 1990.
Right. That initial event.
It was Dave Myers from CoCoPro. They were a tea company in the Coco aftermarket scene.
Good name, yeah.
He partnered with the Glenside Color Computer Club to put on that very first Atlanta event.
And that first gathering was pretty significant, wasn't it? Even though the Coco wasn't new, these folks saw the value in creating a physical space.
A place for the community to actually meet, share their passion.
And it says a lot about their dedication, really.
And Alan Huffman, our chronicler, he wasn't always, right in the middle of things from day one.
No, he talks about his own start, right?
Yeah, he describes his introduction to the Coco as a student down in Lufkin, Texas. Like a lot of tech kids back then, he was on local BBSs.
Board-to-board systems, yeah.
Yeah.
Dial-up communities, they were vital back then.
Absolutely. Programming, hanging out online.
Those BBSs were the digital town squares for people with shared interests, especially if they were geographically spread out. Crucial for sharing knowledge software.
Huffman mentions there was a small Coco club in Lufkin, and one person in particular, his friend Terry Todd.
Okay.
Terry sounds like quite the innovator. He actually developed his own BBS program called SMOBBBS.
SMOBBBS.
That's an interesting name. It had a bit of an edge. Apparently, it was a playful jab at all the clone systems that look like another popular BBS package, COBBS.
Huh. That's great. That indie spirit, that willingness to tinker and build your own thing, so characteristic of that early home computer era.
Totally. People weren't just using the tech, they were actively shaping it.
And Todd didn't stop at the BBS software, did he?
No, he started creating these memory-extending patches, too, called module DUS, just ways to boost what the Coco could do.
Pushing the limits.
Yeah, and that eventually evolved into something called multi-basic. And this is where the name 42 technology first popped up.
Ah, the Douglas Adams reference?
Must be. It was the initial name, though they never actually used it, for the company Huffman and Todd were planning.
So even before their company, Sub-Etha Software, officially existed, they were already building stuff at this very grassroots level, driven by wanting to make the Coco do more.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Just a month, like 1 month, before their first ad for Shadow BBS and Multi-Basic was supposed to run in the Rainbow magazine.
Which was the magazine for Coco users, right? A big deal.
Huge deal. Dave Myers from CoCoPro invites them to that very first Atlanta CoCoFest.
Wow. Talk about timing.
Right. That invitation just propelled Huffman and Todd right into the heart of the Coco community.
It really shows how important those early personal connections were, doesn't it? For building and sustaining these kinds of events.
And their trip to Atlanta, get this, they literally traveled in the back of a covered pickup truck. All the way from Texas to Georgia.
No way. That is dedication.
Isn't it? Talk about an adventure.
That image just perfectly captures the spirit of those early days. Maybe a bit rough and ready, but fueled by just massive enthusiasm and a shared purpose.
It really underscores the personal investment these folks were making just to be part of it all.
Definitely.
Huffman looks back on it. The contrast between those early days just out of high school, computers felt relatively affordable then. And the time he was writing these chronicles, when computers had gotten more expensive and, well, time just seemed to fly by faster.
It's a poignant reminder, isn't it? How quickly tech and life just evolve.
Yeah, that element of nostalgia, that reflection, you find that a lot in communities around older tech.
There's a real appreciation sometimes for the simplicity, maybe even the limitations of those older systems. It often sparked incredible creativity.
So that first Atlanta CoCoFest finally happens, April 1991, at the Hyatt Regency Woodfield. Huffman says it was a good turnout, 23 vendors, 25 booths.
Decent size for a first dedicated fest.
Yeah, and some key companies were there. Alpha Software Technologies, CoCoPro, of course, Color Systems, Danasoft, Delmar.
These were the players in the Coco aftermarket, right? Providing the upgrades, the software, the utilities.
Keeping the Coco alive and kicking long after Radio Shack sort of stepped back.
Exactly, extending its life and functionality.
He mentioned seeing a real variety of stuff being demoed. OS 9, hardware, and software.
Now, OS 9, that was the more powerful operating system for the Coco, right? Multitasking, more memory.
Exactly. More capable than the standard system.
Yeah.
So OS 9 stuff, OS 9 games, utilities, also Big Basic, a word processor called Simply Better. He actually bought that one.
Okay.
Something called G Windows, and even a sneak peek at Steve Bjork doing some game programming.
The OS 9 presence is really key there. It shows that even as the original hardware aged, there was this strong push to enhance it with more sophisticated software.
But it wasn't all just official booths and slick demos. Huffman also points out the more informal side.
Ah, the hallway track.
Exactly. Unofficial vendors selling stuff out of their hotel rooms, evening chats in the lobby with figures like Steve Bjork.
That's often where the real magic happens at these events, isn't it? Those casual conversations, the unexpected collaborations.
Totally. And speaking of Steve Bjork, Huffman tells this funny story about his first encounter with him. Involved Bjork's bouncing head demo somehow.
A bouncing head demo. Okay.
It's a bit awkward, but definitely a memorable introduction to a big name in the Coco world.
It's those human moments, those quirky little interactions that make these chronicles feel so real. It wasn't just about the tech. It was about the people connecting, sometimes clumsily, but always genuinely.
And Sub-Etha Software, Huffman and Todd's company, they had their own booth at this first Atlanta Fest.
Their debut.
Yeah, showing off their brand new Shadow BBS and Multi-Basic, their first fest as a company.
That must have been a huge milestone for them, a chance to connect directly with potential users.
Huffman also saw some really interesting hardware hacks. Like, someone named Chris Hawks managed to get a Coco 3 booting directly from a hard drive.
Wow, in '91. That was pretty advanced for a Coco. How'd they do it?
Apparently using a special chip, a 5V to 12V converter. Imagine the speed difference compared to floppy disks.
Oh, massive. That kind of ingenuity digging into the hardware and modifying it, that was such a hallmark of the Coco crowd, always finding ways around limitations.
Music and MIDI were also making a splash. Calisoft was demonstrating OS 9 MIDI support.
MIDI opening up musical possibilities.
And CoCoPro teamed up with someone to introduce Newspaper 09, a desktop publishing package for OS 9.
Desktop publishing. See, that shows the platform's potential for more serious applications too, beyond just games and programming.
He also mentions these private mini-seminars happening in hotel rooms.
Smaller groups, more focused discussions.
Yeah, where people could really dive deep into specific topics, exchange ideas.
Those informal sessions were probably crucial for in-depth learning, especially for the more technical folks.
Overall, it sounds like that first Atlanta CoCoFest was a definite success. Especially for Sub-Etha, they saw a 15% jump in sales.
That's great, and the attendees seemed really enthusiastic.
Yeah, that positive feedback would have been a huge encouragement for everyone involved, organizers and vendors alike, proof that these gatherings were valuable.
Worth continuing for sure.
Huffman wraps up his account of Atlanta 91 with this funny observation about counting ice on bridge signs driving back to Texas.
Huh. Road trip realities.
And wondering about these things called Krispy Kreme shops he kept seeing.
It's those little personal details, isn't it? They make these stories feel so authentic, even if you never owned a Coco yourself.
Okay, let's fast forward now. April 1992. The CoCoFest circuit is growing. This time, it's the Chicago CoCoFest.
Chicago, okay.
And the travel was different for Huffman and his partner. They actually flew instead of driving.
Signifies the fests are getting more important, maybe? Or just scheduling conflicts?
Yeah, he mentions commitments to their music stores back home made driving tough.
Makes sense. Balancing the passion project with the day job.
The flight itself, uneventful, thankfully, but the taxi ride from the airport, $36.
Ouch. Some things really never change, do they? Airport taxi fares.
Right. He talks about the pre-show setup and a practical purchase he made, a clock printer board for his Disto SCII from a company called Barsoft.
Little upgrades, peripherals.
Yeah.
Essential for keeping these older systems humming and adding features.
That kind of specialized hardware, finding it and buying it, really highlights the ongoing need within the community for these components.
Definitely. Maintaining and enhancing their Cocos.
Now, the Chicago show, it's actually larger than the previous Atlanta one in terms of companies. 16 companies across 10 booths.
More vendors. That's a healthy sign. Shows activity in the ecosystem.
Yeah, familiar names like ACBBS, Alpha Software, CocoPro, Sub-Etha, but also some new ones like Animogic and Farna Systems.
New players emerging alongside the established ones. Good mix.
And there were some particularly cool demos at this Chicago Fest. Alan Deacock showed his port of the game, The Huster, running on OS 9.
The Exter. I remember that game. How did it run?
Apparently incredibly fast, and it was even multitasking.
On a Coco. That's impressive.
And Ken Dunn had a SCSI hard drive interface, SCSI being faster, right?
Yeah, faster than the standard IDE or floppy interfaces back then.
They were running a complete system off the hard drive, no floppy drive needed at all. That was really pushing the envelope.
Those demos would have been real head-turners for the tech crowd, showcasing the Coco's untapped potential with better software and storage.
Sub-Etha unveiled their new OSK-Etha Guy, a graphical user interface.
Moving towards GUIs, making things more visual user-friendly.
Yeah, while Joel Hegberg presented his Etha Guy, which is a cool 3D program launcher specifically for the MM1 computer.
MM1, another Coco-related machine. So a trend towards making these systems easier to use, moving beyond the command line.
Seems like it. Seminars were also a big part of the Chicago Fest. Talks by Steve Bjork, Marty Goodman, Mr. Strong.
Covering Coco topics, presumably?
Mostly, yeah. But also Frank Hogg gave a talk on CDI technology, which was pretty new then. CDI, wow. So looking beyond the Coco world, too, at broader tech trends.
Yeah, it shows the community was interested in both their niche and the future of computing generally. These seminars were valuable learning opportunities.
And chances for discussion, exchanging ideas.
Huffman really emphasizes the strong sense of community he felt at this Chicago Fest, just the dedication of people to this machine long after its mainstream days. He also notes he had more responsibilities this time, and the attendance was higher than Atlanta the year before.
Growing attendance is a good sign. Sustained interest. And his increased role shows Sub-Etha was becoming more central to the scene.
Ken Fish, in his note at the end of the Chronicles, really sums up why these fests existed. He says it was the people, the vendors, and the computer, and the reason behind it all. You.
That's perfect. It highlights that shared interest, the desire to connect, share stories.
It wasn't just about the tech, was it?
Not at all. It was fundamentally about the human connections forged through that shared passion. Okay, moving into 1993. We've got CoCoFests in both Atlanta and Des Moines this year.
2 major events.
For the Atlanta show, Huffman mentions his travel and lodging changed. He actually stayed with other vendors this time.
Oh, that probably deepened the camaraderie even more. Yeah. More chances for those late-night chats and idea swaps outside the main show.
Definitely. He mentions Andre Lavelle selling some unique items like portable letter openers.
Portable letter openers, okay.
Okay.
Alongside the expected stuff like rare 512K memory boards, I assume.
Exactly. You really never knew what you might find at a CoCoFest booth.
That eclectic mix is part of the charm, isn't it? Diverse interests, little entrepreneurial ventures popping up.
Huffman includes a list of vendors for the '93 Atlanta show, which gives us a great snapshot of who was active then.
Those lists are gold. Helps understand the landscape, the key players supporting the platform.
Sub-Etha was demoing their new direct screen control for high-speed OS 9 games.
Technical improvement. Better gameplay.
Smoother, more engaging, yeah. And the Glenside Cocoa Club was there too, drumming up interest for the upcoming CoCoFest.
That cross-promotion between regional clubs was important for strengthening the whole network. And focusing on game shows, that was still a big draw.
There was even a shirt signing contest. The winner got over 125 signatures.
125? That suggests a pretty decent turnout, even if it wasn't mainstream anymore.
Yeah, Huffman describes a really relaxed atmosphere, strong camaraderie.
That friendly, informal vibe seems like a constant theme. As much social gatherings as tech expos.
Then there's the 1993 Des Moines CoCoFest. The drive sounds like it was less eventful for Huffman this time.
Maybe a relief after the pickup truck adventure.
It be. The real highlight there seems to have been the DS69B digitizer booth.
A digitizer? What was special about it?
You could get your picture taken with Mark Hawkins and Todd Earls.
The developers of Super Extended Color Basic?
Wow.
Yeah. Meeting the guys who created such a fundamental part of the Coco experience, that would have been amazing for longtime users. A real treat, connecting with the people behind the code they used every day.
He also mentions the Planet Engine for OS 9, a planetarium program with apparently really impressive graphics for the time.
A planetarium, cool.
And seminars covering the future of the Coco, MM1 hardware software, and OS 9, of course.
Still looking forward, exploring possibilities.
Yeah.
Not just dwelling on the past.
That continued development of sophisticated software like the Planet Engine, the future-focused discussions, it shows a community actively shaping the Coco's ongoing relevance.
Definitely engaged. And wasn't there a visit to Microware after Des Moines?
Yes, a really memorable side trip. They visited Microware headquarters, the company that made OS 9.
What was that like?
They got to see the actual Coco development systems Microware used.
Yeah.
And even a Coco 1 motherboard being used as a door decoration.
A fun nod to the machine's history. That visit must have been fascinating, seeing the professional side of OS 9 development.
A tangible link to the platform's origins and its core software. Okay, let's jump to 1994. The Chicago CoCoFest was apparently being called the third annual LAST.
The third annual LAST. That's funny.
A
bit self-aware, maybe?
Yeah, it seems the community had a good sense of humor about the uncertainty surrounding the platform's future.
That moniker reflects the reality, sure. The Coco wasn't mainstream. But it also speaks volumes about their resilience, doesn't it? Determined to keep the fests going.
And the drive to Chicago that year sounds like another adventure. Huffman picked up David Graham from Blackhawk Enterprises.
Okay.
And they actually stopped to help put out a car fire on the highway.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Seriously. Definitely more excitement than your average commute to a computer show.
Right. Those unexpected side quests on the way to the fests just add to the whole lore. Highlights the lengths people went to.
Anything interesting at the fest itself?
Well, someone apparently brought a sun-in workstation.
A sun-in workstation. At a CoCoFest.
Yeah. A sign of the changing times in computing, maybe?
Yeah.
Some Coco fans moving towards newer tech, but still keeping that connection to the past.
That juxtaposition is interesting. More modern tech alongside the classic Cocos shows how attendees' interests were evolving with the wider tech world.
The vendor list for Chicago 94 still looks strong, though. Connect was showing off OS 9 BBS software that could handle PC RIP graphics.
RIP graphics on a Coco BBS.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And Daltrug had their Planet Engine software again. And also, get this, galactic-themed jewelry.
Galactic jewelry. Okay, that's definitely unique. Reflects the diverse interests. From serious software to fun novelties?
Tony DiStefano from Disto apparently got held up at customs that year, poor guy.
Oh no. Real-world challenges intruding on the fun.
And Farna Systems had their usual PVC nightmare backdrop, this time with a World of 68 Micros logo.
A nod to the 6800, 6809 processor family, I guess, connecting to related microcomputer scenes.
Seems like the evening gatherings in Chicago got a bit more organized that year. A steak dinner, a visit to a movie memorabilia restaurant.
Moving beyond just hanging out in the lobby.
Yeah, more structured socializing probably helped foster that community feel even more, providing relaxed opportunities to connect personally.
Makes sense.
Huffman notes there were some first-time vendors in 94, too. Always a good sign for keeping things fresh.
New blood, yeah.
Yes.
Shows ongoing vitality.
And there were discussions about bringing Max 10, which was popular software, over to OS 9.
Efforts to port existing software to OS 9. More evidence of ongoing development and interest.
The traditional post-show meal in Chicago, Genghis Khan Mongolian barbecue.
Huh. A fittingly customizable meal for tech enthusiasts, perhaps.
Maybe. And there was even talk of using colored dots on name badges to help people find others with specific Coco interests.
Oh, like I'm into OS 9 or I do hardware mods.
Something like that, a way to facilitate more targeted networking. Smart idea.
Definitely.
Then the 1994 Atlanta CoCoFest was dubbed the Big One.
Why the big one?
Largest vendor turnout in years. 27 scheduled vendors. Lots of new products and developments being shown off.
Wow, 27 vendors. That suggests a real peak in activity for the Atlanta Fest around this time.
They even had awards. Cool backdrop, cool gadget, and coolest prank. Sub-Etha won the backdrop one.
Awards. That adds a fun, lighthearted element.
Yeah, but interestingly, despite the strong vendor showing, the overall attendee count was a bit smaller than previous years.
Huh. More sellers, fewer buyers.
Seems like it. But Huffman notes those who did attend were very enthusiastic buyers.
Quality over quantity, maybe. A really dedicated core group.
Could be. He also mentions getting a weird gift, unlabeled bottles of some dark liquid.
Unlabeled dark liquid. That sounds ominous.
Yeah.
Or maybe just homemade soda.
Who knows? Some CoCoFest mysteries remain unsolved. It paints a picture of this close-knit community with its own traditions and inside jokes.
Quirky gifts and dedicated buyers. Sounds about right.
The name badges at Atlanta 94 were apparently almost perfect, even had color coding for different attendee types, vendors, speakers, regular attendees.
Good organization helps.
And the traditional Lucky Key after-fest dinner happened, one of Huffman's favorite memories from that fest, the souped-up generic sodas.
Sometimes it's the little things, isn't it? Good badges, memorable sodas. It all adds to the experience.
Okay, moving into the later years, covered here. 1995 Chicago CoCoFest. This one was the 4th annual last.
Still rolling with the last theme. But they kept happening. Shows that resilience again.
Thankfully, the drive there was less eventful for Huffman this time.
Good for him. What was happening at the fest?
Rick Cooper was apparently making fast 232 PAX overnight devices to speed up serial communication.
Making them overnight. Wow, dedication.
And Budgetware was showing off a see-through SCSI hard drive. Kind of cool.
The see-through hard drive. Neat visual. Shows the hardware tinkerers were still busy innovating.
The vendor list for 95 Chicago still looks pretty solid. Frank Swigert from Farna Systems was showcasing new software by Chris Decker.
What kind of software?
A faster CoCo GRF-DRV for better graphics, with resizable windows even, and updates to Basic 09.
Significant updates. Improving performance, adding features. Development was definitely still ongoing in 95.
Dana Patterson presented an interface to let you hook up an IBM 8T-style keyboard to your CoCo.
Oh, that's a practical upgrade. More modern keyboard feel.
And there were yet again rumors about CoCo-compatible Clystrons.
The Klystron rumors return. That must have become a running gag in the community.
Seems like it. Added some folklore to the scene.
Was there a seminar about the future this year?
Yes, encouraging attendees to think about upgrading to OSK machines, a different line of CoCo-compatibles.
Suggesting a potential path forward as the original hardware aged? Acknowledging reality?
Yeah. Though Huffman notes the fest after the fest gathering wasn't as exciting for him that year.
Maybe things were winding down slightly, or just a personal feeling.
The 1995 Atlanta CoCoFest, the 6th annual Atlanta, marked a big personal shift for Alan Huffman.
Right, this is when he started at Microware.
Exactly, the company behind OS 9, so it was kind of a goodbye to Sub-Etha Software as his main independent gig.
That's a significant turning point. A key figure moving into the more professional OS 9 world. A shift in his community involvement.
There was apparently a funny mistake on the Fest booklet cover that year. Bill Whitman gave a talk about the WCP 306 computer and the latest OS 9, version 3.01.
Still discussing new hardware and OS updates.
And in a totally random moment, Huffman and some others ran into Penn and Teller.
Penn and Teller at a CoCoFest. That's wild.
Definitely adds a memorable, surreal touch to that fest.
For sure. But how was the attendance?
Noticeably low, actually, which understandably led to some concerns about the future of the fests.
Yeah, declining attendance suggests the community was shrinking. The question of viability becomes more real.
1996 brings us the Chicago CoCoFest, the 5th annual last. Huffman flew in all the way from California for this one.
Still committed, even after moving cross-country. That's impressive.
He mentions seeing a new vehicle he called the Monk Mobile and the usual toll booths.
The Monk Mobile. Wonder what that was.
Who knows? At the fest, Frank Swigert from Farna was presenting his new book, Mastering OS 9.
A book. That's a great resource. Shows dedication to sharing knowledge, helping users really dig into OS 9.
And the Glenside Club was trying to bring MIDI back into the spotlight for the Coco?
Keeping the music alive.
Apparently, the latest version of Nitro S9, a popular OS9 distribution, had some seriously impressive speed improvements.
Nitro S9. Yeah, that was known for being fast. Significant performance boosts keep platforms relevant.
There were also talks about Terry Todd's orphanware, older, unsupported software.
Preserving the past.
Yeah, and plans for a master OS9 shareware library, plus a scholarship program from the OS9 users group.
Wow, a scholarship program. That shows a real commitment to the future, preserving resources and supporting new enthusiasts, thinking long-term.
Brother Jeremy, who seems to be a regular, held his Sunday service. And there was a specific seminar on MIDI on the CoCo.
The mix of activities, again, technical stuff, community support, even religious services, shows the personal connections.
Then 1997, the Chicago CoCoFest, the 6th annual last. Huffman mentions feeling a strong sense of déjà vu.
After 6 last fests, I bet.
He actually brought his full CoCo and MM1 systems to sell off some gear this time.
Adapting to circumstances. Maybe downsizing his collection, helping others get parts.
A big highlight was Dennis Bathory kits making a return.
From Green Mountain Micro, a real pioneer from the early CoCo days.
Yeah, he gave an energetic keynote about the history of his company and some of his really unusual music projects using the CoCo.
Connecting the past with the present. His music stuff would have been fascinating, highlighting the creative potential.
And get this, an impromptu jam session broke out. MIDI guitars, other instruments.
A live music session using CoCos. That sounds amazing. Really showcases the musical side interactively.
Huffman notes there were still new hardware and software items being shown, and even some new faces. Encouraging signs.
Still attracting fresh interest, even in '97. That's pretty resilient.
Finally, there was a 1997 Pennsylvania CoCoFest. This one was dedicated to the memory of Alex Forrest.
Alex Forrest, yeah, a respected CoCo hacker who had passed away, shows those strong personal bonds.
There was a pre-show dinner at Olive Garden. The fest itself had seminars by Steve Bjork on game programming.
Bjork again, what did he talk about?
Included insights into his classic game Super Pitfall. And Boise Petrie spoke about the future of OS 9.
Having figures like Bjork and Pitcher share insights would have been a huge draw. Real expertise.
There was also talk about starting a CoCo community newsletter.
Trying to keep people connected between fests. Good idea.
The Pennsylvania Fest reported 149 attendees, 26 vendors. Huffman specifically calls out Sockmaster's demo and Bjork's seminar as being really worthwhile.
Still a dedicated crowd. And highlighting standout sessions shows the continued value people found in attending.
So looking back across all these chronicles from Alan Huffman, a few themes just keep popping up, don't they?
Absolutely. That incredibly strong sense of community, first and foremost.
And the sheer ingenuity and passion for the Tandycolor computer. People just keep developing hardware and software long after Radio Shack stopped.
Continuous innovation from the users themselves. These themes really get to the heart of the CoCo's appeal and why these fests mattered so much. They were more than just computer shows.
They were about the people, their shared enthusiasm, building something together.
Exactly.
And adding another layer to this is the brief CoCo music history by Mike Knudsen that was included.
Right, that gives important context on the audio side.
He talks about the pre-MIDI era, basic game sounds, simple tunes, but also more complex text-to-music compilers like Color Quaver and Stereo Composer.
Showing how sound evolved on the CoCo from simple beeps to structured composition even before MIDI came along.
Then MIDI musical instrument digital interface arrived. That was a game changer, wasn't it?
Huge. Specialized MIDI packs from companies like Speech Systems let you connect the CoCo to keyboards, synthesizers.
Which led to software like CoCo MIDI Pro and Lyra, opened up a whole new world for CoCo musicians.
Allowed much more sophisticated music creation and manipulation than was possible before on the platform.
Knudsen then details Ultimuse, this powerful music creation program he developed with Ed Hathaway.
Ultimuse, yeah. That really leveraged OS 9's multitasking capabilities for advanced stuff. Complex arrangements.
He also mentions other cool musical things like soundtracks and John Kowalski's MOD file player.
MOD files, like for the Amiga scene. Playing those on a CoCo is impressive. Ultimuse was probably the peak of CoCo music software, but these other examples show the breadth of creativity.
Knudsen wraps up by reflecting on the CoCo's impact, emphasizing the great musical times it provided for many people.
And that's key. Maybe the CoCo isn't famous in general music tech history, but for its users, it clearly played a significant, meaningful role in their musical journeys and creativity.
So what's the big takeaway here for you, the learner? These CoCoFests, brought to life in Huffman's Chronicles, they weren't just about old tech.
Not at all. They were this powerful demonstration of community strength, connections forged through a shared passion.
They really represent a microcosm of a larger thing, don't they? How enthusiast communities form and thrive around all sorts of interests, tech, art, you name it.
Exactly. These communities provide vital spaces for connection, innovation, preserving knowledge, preserving skills.
And these chronicles, they just weave together the technical innovation, the personal friendships, those wonderfully quirky moments.
Offering us this unique, insightful glimpse into a vibrant moment in personal computing history.
And by taking this deep dive into what might look like a niche subculture,
We actually gain broader insights, don't we, into human behavior, that fundamental need for connection, the diverse ways people find meaning through shared passions.
which brings us to a final thought for you, the learner. What other seemingly niche communities are out there, maybe in totally different fields?
Communities that hold similarly rich histories, offering valuable insights into connection and innovation.
Perhaps this deep dive has sparked a curiosity in you to explore your own areas of passionate interest, whatever they might be.
Indeed, there are countless stories waiting out there in the less traveled corners of human experience, each offering unique lessons if we just take the time to look.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the CoCoFest Chronicles. It's been a really fascinating journey into a world many might have forgotten.
But one that clearly held a tremendous amount of heart and ingenuity.